Okay. On page 30 of your anthology, we have yet a different concept, which I've also mentioned here and there, but now we're going to define it more thoroughly. And it is aspiration. Okay, aspiration is a concept which has to do with the variations or the allophonic variation of the three voiceless stop sounds, p, k, and ch, depending on where they occur within the word and depending on the syllable in which they occur. Okay, so it says here only voiceless stop sounds are aspirated, like I just said, p, t, and k. These sounds are aspirated in syllable initial position if that syllable is stressed. So it's not the case that they're aspirated always at the beginning of a word. Instead, they're always aspirated at the beginning of a stressed syllable. Let's look at the examples. Paw, Peter, pan, paper, oppose, rapidity, appeal. What happens in the enunciation of these aspirated stop sounds is that they imply a brief puff of air. They're plosive, okay? Aspiration is represented with a little h. That this is called the diacritic. Anything that you use around a phoneme to indicate a specific variation is called the diacritic. So we would represent the phoneme plus a little h that we place above the phoneme. From now on, then, when you transcribe a word such as paw, then it's not just the p phoneme. You need to include that little h to show that you understand that that p is a particular specific p, namely an aspirated p. Okay? The best way to see that a sound is aspirated is by placing a small piece of paper in front of your lips as the sound is produced. The piece of paper should move forward as the puff of air is expelled. Let's see. We have p, p, t, t, k, k. See how the plosiveness of air makes that piece of paper move forward. Obviously, it's more evident in the p because the sound is produced very close to the piece of paper because that p is a bilabial sound as opposed to the k in which the puff of air comes from all the way in the back of your mouth. Now, what happens when this p occurs in the middle of a word and it's not the stressed syllable? Then we have an aspirated p. Unaspirated. In other words, a sound that is neutral. Just a normal sounding p. It's not p, it's just p. Okay? For example, in words such as open and apple. Actually, here it says pope. But pope, that's actually incorrect because the first one is aspirated. P, pope. And the second one is unreleased. I'm sorry, I apologize, I just saw that. But the words open and apple are unaspirated. It's not the case that we say open or apple. We say open, apple. Okay? Now, if a sound is unaspirated, it's represented with the neutral phoneme, just with a p or a t or a k. Finally, in final position, the sounds p, t, and k are unreleased. What that means is that the sound is not fully produced. You don't really release the airflow when you finish that sound. So, for example, we say cup, soup, fort, port, hit, knock, duck. We do not say cup, soup, fort, okay? It's not plosive and it's not neutral either. You simply kind of don't finish the sound, especially when you pronounce these words in isolation. Again, cup, soup, fort, sport, hit, knock, duck. Now, what happens with the unreleased allophone is that instead of placing a little H above the phoneme like I do with aspirated sounds, what we do is we place a little circle above the phoneme. So if I were to provide the symbol in the word soup, for example, this P would have a little circle above it. Okay? And it's important, like I said before, to make sure that you understand the difference between the different variants or variations of these phonemes depending on the context in which they occur. Once again, if you don't make this difference, nothing will happen. But native speakers will notice, and if you want to sound native-like, then it's important that you do make an effort to do that. Why am I saying that? Because, for example, in Spanish, we have the P, except we don't have an aspirated P. So we don't say papa, or we don't say pelota, okay? We say papa and pelota. The P is exactly the same. It is an aspirated P. We also don't have an unreleased P. So we don't say, I can't think of any words that end in P. But we also, like I said, do not have an unreleased P. We only have the neutral P. The same happens with K and T in Spanish. Okay, the next concept that we're going to be looking at is a little bit complicated, and it's the syllabic structure. It's complicated because it's a little bit difficult to describe, and also because the syllable structure in English is a little bit complex because it's hard to, there is controversy as to when one syllable ends and the next syllable starts in multisyllabic words. But first, let's look at what a syllable is. A syllable is made up of at least one thing, which is called the nucleus, the center, the heart of the syllable. So in a word such as as in a piece of paper, is a word in and of itself, and it's also a syllable. It's a monosyllabic word. The which is the vowel, constitutes the core or the center or the nucleus of the syllable. Okay? The nucleus of the syllable is normally a vowel. The vowel in any syllable constitutes the center of that syllable. Okay? A syllable might also, however, contain something before that vowel, which is referred to as the onset. For example, to, as in to go, to. We have a t and then the nucleus, which is the schwa. To go, to, okay? Or the word go. Go, we have the g, which is the onset because it occurs before the nucleus, and then the nucleus, which is the o, the vowel. Okay? We also might have constituents or elements that appear after the vowel in a syllable. For example, the word that, which is a monosyllabic word. So in the word that, the nucleus or the core of the syllable is the vowel, the a. But we have a consonant before the vowel, which would be the onset, right? The th. And then we also have a consonant after the vowel, which would be the coda. We might have more than one onset and more than one coda. Okay? So that's how syllables are represented. Here I provide a picture of the word sprays. Okay? We have that this word sprays is made up of one syllable. Even though it has a lot of letters, it's only one syllable. How do I know this? Because it only has one vowel, and therefore that vowel is the nucleus of this syllable. So the symbol used to represent a syllable is the symbol that you see at the top, and in this syllable we have a very complex onset made up of not one but three consonants. S, p, r, spur, spur. Then the rhyme, which is made up of the nucleus and the coda. The nucleus is the vowel, in this case a, which is a diphthong, and then the coda is the final consonant, namely z. Sprays. Okay, I want you to look carefully, take your time looking and trying to understand this syllable structure of this monosyllabic word. Okay? You're not going to be asked to do this, but this is important to comprehend the function or the role played by vowels within the syllable. In fact, some say that the syllable, by definition, has to have at least a nucleus, and that nucleus is the vowel, at least one vowel. Okay? Next, you're asked to do an exercise, which it says to draw the syllable structure for each of the following words. Student, certainly, kitten, saddle, button, and tunnel. But first, we're going to hold on for just a second because I'm going to define the next term so that you understand why it's important to know about all this. And it's the term syllabic consonants. Certain consonants in English, namely two of them, n and l, might constitute the nucleus or the center of a syllable. Okay, what happens is that they kind of have a special power and they absorb the vowel that would have otherwise constituted the nucleus of the syllable, and they become the nucleus of the syllable. In words such as button, for example, the first syllable is ba, but the second syllable is n. Uh-oh, and where did the vowel go? Well, it got absorbed by the n. In a word such as tunnel, we have two syllables, ta and nl. Uh-oh, and what happened to the vowel? Again, the l has that special capacity to absorb the vowel. Whenever we have this happening, what we do is we place a small vertical line underneath either l and or n to say that we know that in these words, n or l are acting as syllabic consonants because they are absorbing the vowel, and the vowel therefore is disappearing. And we have all of these examples. Listen carefully. Kitten, kitten, kittle, kittle, saddle, saddle, garden, garden, button, button, little, little, sentence, sentence, student, student, didn't, didn't, ladle, ladle, or ladle. Some people say ladle. Certainly, certainly, shouldn't, shouldn't, tunnel, tunnel, nickel, nickel. Let's take, for example, the last word, nickel. So we clearly see that the first syllable is ni, ni, ni. But the last syllable is ko, and the vowel disappears. That's what I mean when I say that this is a syllabic consonant. In other words, a consonant that constitutes the nucleus or the core of the syllable. I will be posting in a minute three pictures of the exercise which you were asked to do by providing tree structures of the word student, certainly, kitten, saddle, button, and tunnel. I challenge you to try and do those on your own before I go ahead and post those files for you to check and see if you did it right. But the most important thing that you need to remember here is that n and l have the special capacity of absorbing the vowel in certain syllables, and therefore they're referred to as syllabic consonants. Finally, here we have a word on syllabification in English. I am not going to go over this. I want you to read it at your own pace and see how syllables or breaking up words into syllables in English is quite complex. Let me know if you have any questions. I will see you on the next video, which I believe will be the last video for this morning.